What to do if the scale just won't move. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood. I owned a gym for 10 years. I've coached thousands of clients, and I know how frustrating it can be to feel like you're doing everything right and that scale just won't budge. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why that may happen. There are 4 potential reasons why this could happen. And of course, I'm going to tell you what you can actually do about it to make sure you get those results that you've been working so hard for. But before we get into that, if you're a man over 30 years old and you're looking to drop some body fat, we actually put together a free group that you can join. So check out the description and the comment to click on the link and join the free group. Okay, so reason number 1, before I get into that, it's important to understand the difference between weight loss and fat loss. And unfortunately, the scale only measures weight loss. So it doesn't really give you an accurate representation all the time of exactly what you've been accomplishing or not accomplishing. So obviously fat loss is just the body fat that you lose during a cut, whereas weight loss or weight gain can be several factors, right? So your overall number on that scale, the weight that you have, can be fat, it can be water, it can be muscle, it can be bone, it can be glycogen. There are a lot of factors, and your day-to-day life can actually influence these numbers as well. So it can kind of give you an unrealistic metric of where you're actually going with regards to your fat loss. So for instance, if you're stressed out all the time, if you're not sleeping very well, if you're overtraining, some of these things can actually help you or cause you to gain weight because of the water that you're retaining as well. So some of the times you may be doing everything correctly and you might actually be losing body fat, but you're not losing body weight because the number on the scale stays the same, which is typically attributed to a lot of water retention. And water retention can be caused from numerous factors, but like I said, sleep, stress, overtraining, a lot of these other factors that you have that you really can't necessarily see from the scale alone. So one of the things that we always like to recommend is, rather than just going by the number on the scale, also use other metrics to determine whether or not you are progressing. So this can look like before and after pictures, or even progress pictures as you go. This can look like measurements using a measuring tape. This can be doing body fat percentage if you have those type of tools. And if you are going to weigh yourself, we always recommend doing it daily if that's something that you want to use as a metric. Because if you weigh yourself once a week or once a month, your weight is going to fluctuate. So you might catch yourself on a really good day where your weight is lower than it typically is, and it kind of gives you this unrealistic expectation of the amount of progress that you're actually getting. Or conversely, you might catch yourself on a bad day and the weight is higher than it typically is, which makes you feel like you're not progressing when you really are. But if you're weighing yourself every single day, you can get the daily average. And what we're looking for is the trend. So we want to see it going in the right direction, right? It's going to kind of look like this, where the numbers kind of pop up and down, but trending in the right direction. Whereas if you weigh yourself once in a while, you might not get that accurate description. So number 1, you might be losing fat, but the number on the scale isn't changing because you're holding on to too much water. Okay, so the number 2 reason why the scale is not budging, this is something I talk about all the time and no one really wants to hear it. It's that you're not actually in a calorie deficit. So you might be eating healthy, you might be exercising, but if you're not in a calorie deficit, you're not going to see that number on the scale go down. You're not going to drop your body fat. And again, no one wants to hear this. I don't want to beat a dead horse because I have talked about this on several occasions, but it's by far the most common reason why you feel like you're in a plateau, but you're really not. And something that I've mentioned before as well is we are all notorious for eating way more calories than we think we are and burning fewer calories than we think we do. And as a result, we think we're in this calorie deficit, but we're really not. And we tend to attribute it to our metabolism, our genetics. Something's wrong, I'm doing everything right, because you can still eat super healthy and do all the right things. But at the end of the day, that number on the scale and your body fat is only going to change if the energy balance kind of reflects the progress that you're making, meaning you have to be in a calorie deficit. You have to burn off more calories than you're taking in. So if you feel like that number's not budging and you're doing everything right, you might have the proper habits, you might be healthy, but you need to make sure you have a plan that's working specifically for you and your goals. As frustrating as this might be to hear, it's actually a very simple fix. So just be a little bit more in tune with your tracking if you're tracking, or just be more calorie conscious in general. You can also increase your daily movement to try to help that equation in terms of calorie calories work in your favor. Okay, so number 2, but by far the most common reason why that number on the scale isn't budging is that you're just not in a calorie deficit, unfortunately. Number 3 is the rarest of the 4, but it still is possible and does happen from time to time. And that would be you're gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people assume that this is where they're at if they're feeling like they're doing everything right, but not seeing results in the scale. They just assume they're doing both of these things. But realistically, it's very difficult to build muscle and drop body fat at the same time. There are 2 typical exceptions to this. The most common is if you're a beginner. So if you're just starting out, it's going to be much easier to build muscle. It's going to be much easier to lose fat, and you can actually do them both simultaneously at the same time. But the more you progress with your fitness journey, the more difficult and unlikely that this is actually going to happen. The second one would be if you're just a genetic freak. So some people have really good genetics where they can gain muscle, lose fat at the same time, and just basically keep up with that type of streak, but that's very, very rare, and that's probably not you. It's definitely not me. So if you're a beginner and you're just starting out, it's very possible that even though the number on the scale isn't moving, you might be actually building muscle and burning fat. But if you've been doing this for a long time, if you've been training for a while, dieting and really being health conscious, the chances of this being the actual conclusion is probably not very likely. And then number 4 would be you've actually just hit a plateau. This kind of makes sense, right? This is only going to be applicable if you've already made some progress and suddenly that progress has come to a halt. So why do plateaus actually happen? First, we have to eliminate the fact that this is actually a plateau and not a false plateau. So a false plateau goes into a lot what I was saying with number 2, where you think you're in a calorie deficit, but you're not. You're eating more calories than you think. You're burning off fewer than you think. So assuming that's not the case, assuming you're doing everything right, you had a bunch of results before, you're still doing the exact same thing, but now suddenly those results are stagnant, that means you've hit a plateau. So why do we hit plateaus? What's actually happening? So anytime you lose body fat and you drop your weight, you actually have a reduction in your metabolism. So your metabolic rate subsequently drops. And let's say you're consistently eating 2,000 calories. In the beginning, your metabolic rate might be 2,500. As you begin to lose weight, the metabolic rate and the amount of calories that you're actually burning off is going to equal the amount of calories that you're taking in. So even though you're doing the exact same thing that you did when you were getting all these great results, eventually those 2 things will intersect and you will no longer get the results. So a few things you can do. If you're in a legitimate plateau, there are 3 things that you can do. The first one is to just lower your calorie intake. So if you consistently take in 2,000 calories, drop it 2, 3, 4, 500, and you can start to see the results happen again. You can only do this for so long, because if you're already relatively low in your calories, you don't want to keep doing this because your metabolism will get slower and slower and slower. The second option that you can do here would be to increase your movement or your energy expenditure. So this would be typically what you want to do is getting steps in. So going for more walks, non-exercise related movement is typically a great way to burn additional calories without doing a lot of harm on your nervous system. And then the third option would be if you've already exhausted the previous 2, so your calories are already relatively low, you're trying to move a lot and you're still in a plateau, eventually you're going to have to bring up your calories. So you can do this what we call a reverse diet, or you can do it even just by what we call maintenance calories. So you're strategically increasing your calories, and you're not going to lose weight when you do this. I'm just telling you that right now. But your goal is to increase your calories while minimizing the amount of body fat and body weight that you gain. And the reason you do this is because this allows you to bring your metabolism and your metabolic rate up higher once again, so that once it's in that position, you can drop the calories again and you start to get the results. We call this the wave method. So the wave method means you drop some weight, eventually you hit a plateau, a little bit of weight comes back up, and then you drop again, a little bit of weight comes up, and you drop again. So there's this cycle that you have to go through. Everyone wants it to be very linear, but eventually you're probably gonna hit a plateau. When you hit a plateau, you can try the things where you drop your calories and increase your movement for a while, and it's going to work. Those typically work really well for breaking through plateaus, especially in the beginning, but eventually you can only cut so long, and you're gonna have to strategically increase your calories to make sure your metabolism's in a good place for when you're ready to cut again. And then also, while you're doing this, you can simultaneously work on building muscle. So again, you're not going to lose weight when you bring your calories up. You're not going to see that number on the scale go down as you bring your calories up, but you're trying to minimize the damage and increase the amount of your metabolic rate that you can actually use for when you're ready to cut next time. So trying your hardest and not seeing results can be super frustrating, but typically there's 4 reasons for this. Either you're retaining a lot of water, you're not actually in a calorie deficit, it could be the fact that you are building muscle and simultaneously losing fat, or you've just hit a plateau. The good news is all of these things are very fixable. So hopefully this video has helped out and gave you some clarity and some knowledge to help take action. If you do enjoy videos like this, do us a huge favor, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.